Time now for our international press review here on France 24, the time when one of our team gets to grips with all the world's press. Tough morning's work that. Paul Barber's the man. Paul, where would you like to start today?
Well, Mark, this morning we'll start with the Jean-Charles de Menezes case. That's an issue dominating a lot of the British papers, especially today. The Guardian, to start off with, are going on the line that Sir Ian Blair, the head of the Metropolitan Police, essentially Britain's most senior police officer, is not going to go over this affair, this case of mistaken identity, which ended up in the death of an innocent Brazilian man.
Obviously, de Menezes was one of 4 people sought by the police, a case of mistaken identity, as you say, and it followed the attack on London's transport system, which resulted in the death of 52 people 2 weeks before he was actually shot.
Quite, so this was just a couple of weeks later.
So that contextualises the kind of atmosphere in Britain at the time and how this came about.
Exactly, and the Guardian do mention that in their editorial, as do the Telegraph. They say that this was a really quite terrifying time in London, and in that sense there needs to be some leeway given to Sir Ian Blair, and this was just one mistake rather than a systemic problem across the board.
The thing is, of course, as critics have pointed out, de Menezes looks nothing like the people they were looking for. It's a big, massive error, and obviously lots of people, given the Conservative Party, the Liberal Democrats, the political opposition in Britain, calling for Blair to resign.
Absolutely.
Blair, no stranger to controversy, saying, no, I'm staying.
Yeah, so this is not going to be a popular decision with many people. The Guardian point out that he's lost public trust, essentially. His job is to keep Londoners safe. That didn't happen for that moment when that mistake happened, and this is an incredibly serious mistake, so he should go.
The Metropolitan Police Force convicted of putting people at risk, which is what they were convicted of. Blair still backed by Gordon Brown. Any reaction in Brazil to this story?
Yes, interestingly, it's not that big an issue. It took a bit of rifling through the papers or online to find some mention of it. There is a small piece on front of the O Globo, the big national paper, but it's not a particularly angry piece, to be honest. And the Brazilian papers seem to be far more interested in the World Cup
Scotland Yard
decision.
Yes, the World Cup decision, big for Brazil, obviously, but obviously you thought that case would make more news in Brazil. Never mind. What's next then?
Okay, well, next we're going to go on to poor old Martina Hingis, who is bowing out of the world tennis scene.
£20 million winnings, isn't it? Poor girl.
Well, L'Équipe, the French daily sports paper, inside in an editorial piece is saying that it's just rather sad and it's a bit slightly pathetic that she's leaving in this way. They say that she's leaving via la petite porte, the small door,
the back door.
Yeah, the back door, absolutely. So it's not the way this young girl, while she was incredibly young when she burst onto the tennis scene in 1997, winning 5 Grand Slams. Of course, this is the second time she
won
retired,
Wimbledon when she was 16. She bowed out in this year's competition, 3rd round. So obviously, if she was taking cocaine to influence her performance, it didn't work, did it?
No.
If you take cocaine, it's a criminal offence. Maybe there'll be a prosecution from the Metropolitan Police to follow, but no word on that at the moment. The thing is, though, she's denying that she took it, although she's admitted she tested positive.
Yes, it's a really bizarre situation, and in fact, she's the one that's taken the lead on this. The tennis authorities haven't said that it's her. She said, "This is me. I've been found with cocaine in my system, but I didn't have cocaine in my system, but I'm going to retire anyway."
Hingis was a super tennis player. Tell us quickly about your Super Mouse story.
Super Mouse. This is the story on front of Britain's independent newspaper. Sounds rather scary to me. This mouse can run for hours, 20 metres per minute. This is the mouse version of Lance Armstrong, and there's a team of 500 of these mice that have been genetically modified. They're incredibly fast, incredibly strong. They can have sex into quite old age. They breed at 3 times the rate.
Too much information, Paul. Too much information. Then maybe we should get one of those mice to do the press review tomorrow. Paul Barber, thank you very much for joining us. You're watching France 24. Stay with us. Would you really want to be anywhere else?